something that is necessary that needs to be done.
So something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that when Rainbow Six Vegas 2 came out, and I want to say that was like '08 probably. Uh, MLG had two of their own maps in the game, built
Yep.
into the game. Nexi went to Montreal, and Ubisoft let him and Casey build two maps, and they were like literally like reconstructions of the MLG venue. And
Yeah.
my player commentaries were shipped on the disc. Like Ubisoft, like
Wow.
is a developer who they do a lot of like work for the hardcore gamers. So like I'm kind of pumped to see what they come out with next. I mean, because they supported the MLG scene like that. I mean, they flew one of my teammates out to Montreal. They did a whole like behind his life type of thing of the pro gaming. I mean, they were really behind the whole MLG scene. So I think more developers need to be like that, EA, like
Yeah, and
Epic, people
even
like
I
that.
remember back in probably 2000 and yeah, it was before in 2009. Bungie invited a couple of staff members, as well as Halo players. It was myself, Balshi, T Squared, Shockwave, Puckett, Nexty,
The
Chivy,
usuals, the usuals, the usuals, yeah.
staff like that. Around like 10 people, and I actually didn't get to go. I had to go to Atlanta instead of practice, but they ended up going out there, and it was before Reach was released. It was post the beta, and they were just kind of sitting next to all the players as they were playing, and the players like Shockwave said he's like, yeah, we could tell them, decrease the nade damage, and they were on the computers next to them decreasing the nade damage,
Hmm.
and that was sweet. But at the same time, I feel like they took it, they took their opinions lightly. When you fly out eight like those credentials are just huge. And when you fly out eight of those people to your headquarters, you got to really take advantage of that. And I feel like they just kind of took them a little bit too lightly, and that's the result of what you saw with the release of Halo Reach, and the very explosive nades, or how they clink, or it just feels a little bit sluggish when you first pick up the game. And I don't know, I just felt like they just really didn't utilize the professional opinions to their advantage. Well, they could have.
Hmm.
Well,
That's kind of
supposedly.
sound awkward.
Huh? Oh yeah, I just forgot about man. Oh whoa whoa. All right. Yeah, I just think it's really cool to see Carolina Games doing such a variety of games. MLG's gone through its different games, but they never had so many at once. I mean, if Carolina Games could pull it off, why can't MLG? Like Mr. X was saying, they need to take a clue from that. That'd be a good idea. Draw more crowd in, and expose people to more games.
Well, I mean, you also got to think of it as a business aspect, as if MLG is going to try to do that on a grander scheme. What kind of area and what kind of sponsors would they need? Just imagine the size of the venue that they would need to accommodate, you know, 10 different games. I mean, look at the size of the venues that we have now, and they're packed. And
I mean,
just
the way
imagine
I
all
always
that.
thought of it is that you could, I mean, let's say Call of Duty's only bringing in 60 teams, you know what I'm saying? Instead of trying to sell 128 team passes, make it a 60 team tournament. There's no reason to try and force it down people's throats if it's not going to go. There's no reason that they can make the tournament shorter and then just bring on another game, Because then
Yeah.
maybe some of the people will go to that.
Yeah, if the community grows, then they can expand it, but they don't have to if it's not going to sell.
I mean, at least in my opinion, though, as if competitive gaming grows, every game grows. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to think. I mean, MLG does try to throw in side tournaments for other games. I mean, they threw in League of Legends for a couple tournaments, and every once in a while they have like a Tekken. Either they'll throw in like a Tekken exhibition or whatever, and they do that to feel out what kind of response they'll get, and if no one really shows up to that, what is their incentive to throw on an even bigger portion or a bigger size tournament of those. I mean, sure, if they could get every decently sized game in the U.S. and throw it into a huge MLG, I mean that could be monstrous. But it's there's already other companies throwing in like specialized tournaments for fighting games, and other people are throwing in other tournaments for Counter Strike and stuff like that. But it's getting those people that go to those tournaments that have already well funded and well advertised to go to MLGs, and I think that's their biggest problem is that. they're sticking with games that they have basis around, and have other people helping them gain players and sponsorships for those games, and they don't think they can outstep those boundaries at that point.
All right.
Well, I think that the audience here is looking to get a couple of these questions answered, so I didn't mind starting one off here with RBBN. Asked a little bit earlier, said he wanted to hear our thoughts regarding the international teams and really what we think about them. And a lot of people, out of the U.S. do follow MLG. Obviously, I believe last time at the Providence Championships, there was something like 172 countries tuned in, with almost 3 million unique viewers just over the one weekend. So obviously the international population is a big deal. It's finally being a lot bigger of an influx with StarCraft and a couple of the other games coming up to the circuit. But really regarding the international teams, back in the Halo games, we thought that in Halo 2 that they were, I mean, not really much of a joke, but it was just they weren't as competitive as us. The best team got sent over, and they didn't do too well at the first tournament. So it was kind of a little bit, I would say, embarrassing, but just to make that first impression. But afterwards, I've always heard that there's this one Gears player named Crooks that's in England, and he's actually regarded as the best Gears player there is, better than Atmosphere and a couple others. And you really can't say that someone in any other country is going to be worse than America, because I mean it's ludicrous. If you have that talent out there, with practice and dedication, big players in the world, and they tend to have what it takes. It just really comes with getting the right target audience. I'm sure there's a guy out there better than Michael Jordan at basketball, but he never touched the ball. So you really just gotta expose it to as many people as possible.
All right. Leaping off on that note, tournaments. We went into a few more details than think we should, but definitely some good knowledge running through here, guys. I want to go ahead and we're already definitely over the hour for our show, but we got a few more segments to do. We're going to talk about Spinna, like he does every week, goes out and finds about, give the AM community a shout out through their spotlight and who is impressed from him, and his stuff, because he's always watching streams, all this other stuff, checking out content. So, Spinna, go ahead and take it away with your little segment for the week.
Well, I have been really busy, we're looking for big boy jobs these days. So what I did get to do this past week, and I wanted to touch on, we're talking about Halo and LANs and all that kind of stuff, is I actually got to go to a local Halo LAN this past week. If anybody knows, at Brutus's house. He's a local player here in Michigan, and usually it's hard to find 8 to 10 people to head out to a LAN, and I kind of just was like, maybe I'll go check it out, see how it is. You never know how no bloom, no sprint will be and all that kind of stuff. But I show up there, and 25 people shows up to this LAN, which is a huge turnout just for just for a LAN. You're not winning anything, you're paying money to go there and all that kind of stuff. And everybody there was never wanting to get done playing. They just wanted to keep playing. They didn't want to switch off and all that kind of stuff. And it was a great thing to see. And just like we were talking about earlier, try to get LANs together, try to get people together that might be casual, but get them into like a LAN setting. I know when I was at college, roommates and people that live close to you, neighbors, would come over whenever they see you playing video games, have them play with you. And I try to get as many local kids as I possibly could to come over, maybe play a few games, or maybe set up a LAN or whatnot. And that's what I'm trying to call out is get people to do that kind of little things to help get casual players into competitive play. LANs are something easy you can do. In Halo 1, you were easy, you could able to split screen and get 4 people on one TV, and shit, I had a blast doing that when I was little. So, I mean, casual players don't know the difference between playing on a 20-inch or a 22-inch monitor than playing on a regular, TV. So, just kind of do that, guys, and that's the big thing. Just try to throw together some LANs, try to get some other people involved, and that's my little spiel.
All right, so basically the community shout out like Spinner's been doing for past weeks has been directed towards a player. but his shout out is to Halo Reach LAN. So definitely try to hold a LAN, get people involved in the Halo. You know, I definitely wow.
Check in the chat. I put the link to a picture that Spinner gave us, of the panoramic shot of the land that he was at. It's pretty sick. It looks nasty.
Yeah.
Wish I could have gone.
And the other thing about regarding lanes is that, you know, back in the day when I was landing, like in New Jersey, and I wanted to land with DMAC when he was hosting the lands with all the pros. You know, I asked him what I needed to do to get out there, and, you know, being the scrub that I was, he told me I needed to bring 2 TVs and, you know, not monitors. They were 2 20-inch tube TVs and 2 Xboxes, the whole setup with it. I had to bring 2 bags of honey barbecue chips, and I finally get there, and, you know, I show up and I'm like, you know, I got everything in my trunk, and here's the chips. And I remember DMAC took the chips and watched me bring in a whole 2 setups by myself. And by the time I finally got situated downstairs, he killed both bags by himself. So, and, you know, and at the same time, I was still happy to be there. And I feel like, you know, a lot of that was lost. You know, there's really not that sense of community anymore. And people just feel like it's, you know, a waste of time setting up something like that. But those are the best times that you have. And those are really where the great friends and memories to start off with. You know, like DMAC, Nexi, Quinn, Shockwave, Pistol, like all those people were, you know, CDN, all those people were people I saw almost bi-weekly because of DMAC and the type of lands he had. So I props to him for putting all those things together and starting something like that, because that's really where, you know, those local communities come from.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, I think in Halo 2, LANs and everything were a lot bigger. I remember, you know, back in Halo 2, it was hard for me to get a spot at any local LAN just because there were so many pros in Michigan at that time that everybody were fighting for the last couple spots to get in there. And I think that's what we don't have now is I never see any local pros heading out to LANs like that or, you know, anything like that. I mean, I know there's still pros around here, and it kind of sucks that, you know, they're not out here playing with, you know, local players or amateur players or whatever, but I feel like that would be a good thing for them to do, kind of like, you know, a whole community thing, you know, go play out with some pros and whatnot, and maybe they can introduce some new players, see what it's all about. So, I mean, it would just be nice to get other people into it.
All right, guys. Leading on to our next topic, we're going to close the segment out from questions from the community. We got a couple of them. We've been asking you throughout the show to tweet at MLG The Voice. Awkward, if you could put that in the chat, see if we can't get some more, but we already got quite a few. The first question, I guess we're going to leave to Ghost Ayami. It's a question from John Cross. He says, I understand that Halo 1 and Halo 2 do not have Xbox Live support anymore, but why doesn't MLG bring back Halo 3 or Halo 1 and Halo 2 instead of Reach, if Reach is so bad?
Well, the reason that they don't bring back games is, I mean, the first and foremost reason that they haven't brought back Halo 1 is really just due to the online support. You know, they just felt like you can't reach out to the community and the mass population. You know, it needs to have that capability and that compatibility to get out to the mass appeal. You know, and even though Halo Reach isn't the best game, you know, you're always seeing companies transfer over their tournaments. You know, you look at Counter-Strike had 1.5, 1.6 great games, and then you bring in Source. Not the best game, but you know what? Tournaments have to switch over. They have to get to the new, really the new scene, what people are playing. You know, when kids go to the store and they're gonna buy, you know, a copy of Halo, they're not buying their original Halo anymore. You know, they're buying Halo Reach. You know,
they're not looking to the bargain bin.
They're not getting Call of Duty 4 anymore. They're getting, you know, call it Modern Warfare 3. So you got to go to the mass appeal as much as possible. You know, as great as these games were, you know, it's sad, but you really just kind of let them go and just hope that, you know, Halo 4 is the best that it can be, and we can do everything we can with that game.
All right, next question comes from Leo_585, and he's got a question that says, it's for Ghost. Do you benefit from the lessons you give, and if so,